Earlier this afternoon, Jon Heyman appeared on WFAN and said that the Mets are a favorite, if not the favorite, and have a very good chance of signing Brad Hand. So in this video, I'm going to react to that report and what I think about the Mets' shot at Brad Hand, what the contract could look like, what the Brad Hand signing would mean for the rest of the Mets offseason, because Heyman also went on to say that the Mets still have a good chance at getting George Springer, but I still believe that it's going to be one or the other. This is what I would do, but this is just what I think. This is what I predict. I'm just being frank about it. And if you guys like this channel, Frank About Sports, make sure to leave a like, comment. What do you think about the report that the Mets are looking to sign Brad Hand, and what kind of contract would you be looking to give him? I think it has to be multi-year. After the deal that Liam Hendricks got, Brad Hand is going to be searching for a multi-year contract. So what do you think those financials would look like? And with that money left over, what other players would you be looking to sign? I'm really curious to get your guys' feedback. And as always, you can make sure to subscribe. It makes my day. And we are getting closer to 900 subscribers. So definitely appreciate the support and talking to you guys in the comments section. I can't get to all of them because every now and then there are some comments like Peter and Frankie where you guys will comment. I'll go to reply and then YouTube just takes it down for community guidelines. So I don't know what's going on there. I try to get to as many guys as I possibly can. Sometimes YouTube just takes down the comments. So let's talk about this report. Let's in fact listen to exactly what Jon Heyman had to say so I'm not taking anything out of context.
I think Brad Hand will go fairly soon. The Mets are heavily involved in that one. At this point, I think it's probably fair to say they're at least a favorite, if not the favorite. The Mets have a good shot at Brad Hand. And the other guy they looked at was Justin Wilson, the guy they had for a long time, lefty reliever, excellent. But I think at this point he's a second choice, and I think Hand is pretty likely. I don't want to say likely, but there's a good chance that the Mets will end up with him.
It definitely is good to hear that the Mets are aggressively pursuing Brad Hand because he is the guy that I and a lot of you other Met fans I know want. So that is good that they're looking at what we hope they do. And Brad Hand's a guy that definitely could help this team out a lot because we've talked about it before, but just that back-end bullpen combination of Lugo and Diaz and Hand and Trevor May, and you have Dellin Betances as your fifth and Jeurys Familia as your sixth pitcher. All of a sudden, Mets have a pretty good bullpen, which would be such a difference from the Mets in the past because you look at even 2015 when they went to the World Series, and years after that, the bullpen has always been a major problem for this team. So getting somebody like Brad Hand would finally give the Mets a pretty good bullpen. He gives you a guy with closing experience so that if all of a sudden Edwin Diaz, when fans come back, is not himself and he starts giving up these big home runs again, you could turn to Brad Hand to be your everyday closer. And you could play the matchups where if all of a sudden, let's say in the ninth inning, you're going to be facing Juan Soto or you're going to be facing Harper or Freddie Freeman or you're going to be facing some tough lefties, you could use Brad Hand the ninth and Diaz in the eighth. It allows you just to do matchups a little better and use these guys in different scenarios. Maybe want to use Lugo in the sixth and Trevor May in the eighth. Like, the Mets will have that ability, and I think with the implementation of Zach Scott and Steve Cohen saying that he's going to upgrade the analytic department, I wouldn't be surprised if you see the Mets make more of these analytical decisions where the way they use their pitchers, maybe the way they play their guys in the field or whatever, is going to be different. It's going to be more analytic based. And I think that their use of Brad Hand would also go along with that. The other interesting thing that Jon Heyman said in that report was that he thinks that if the Mets do not get Brad Hand, they would go to Justin Wilson as a second option, which definitely makes plenty of sense because Justin Wilson has been a good Met. He was better in 19 than he was in 20, so that definitely is not a good sign. I find it interesting that Brad Hand is a couple years younger than Justin Wilson, and also he's obviously better. Now, if I had to predict what kind of contract I think the Mets would sign Brad Hand to, it is going to be a multi-year deal. I'd say 2 years, maybe like $13 million each. I'm thinking like 2 years, $26 million, because I think 13 would probably be close to the max I would go. I don't want to go more than that for a reliever because we know how inconsistent relievers can be. They're great one year, then all of a sudden they're not the same pitcher. So you don't want to see that happen and the Mets make another bad decision with their relievers, because if you watch the video when the Mets signed Dellin Betances, Christmas Eve of last year, I was so excited. I was like, oh my gosh, Mets got Betances. They're going to have a good bullpen. Oh, I was so excited. And then Betances was a nightmare in 2020. Maybe he'll bounce back. If you sign a reliever that's supposed to be good, no guarantee that they will be. The thing about Brad Hand that you have to feel confident about, though, is that just that his track record is so good. You look at down the line. Hand was an all-star in 2017 and 2018, having ERAs of 2.16 and 2.75. In 2019, a 3.30 ERA, but was also an all-star again. So an all-star 3 straight years in a row. And this year he had a 2.05 ERA, so best ERA of his career, albeit a short season. But still, he would have made the all-star team again. So this is a guy who's a perennial all-star in the bullpen. Mets need a lefty. Mets could use more bullpen. Let's say the Brad Hand contract costs at most 13 million, right, per year. And the Mets have around 27 million left to spend. If you take away the 13, the Mets have 14 left. So they still could make some things happen. They still could get a Jackie Bradley or a Kevin Pillar, or maybe make a trade for a center fielder, whether that's Ramon Laureano, whether that's Harrison Bader, or somebody else in the center field market, Kevin Kiermaier. You never know what avenue the Mets might be looking at for center field. They could be thinking some outside the box things that we are not. And for Jackie Bradley or any of these other center fielders, I imagine it is not going to go above 10 million. So you still have 4 million left to spend, and you could give that to a pitcher, or you could give that, like we said, to a bench player, and just make these other signings minor league contracts to establish major league players. Heyman said that around 80% of free agents are still unsigned. So I mean, there are so many guys that still have to be signed, and we know that teams not looking to spend money. There are teams that, if anything, want to lose payroll, not add payroll. So there's just going to be a lot of guys that are going to be out there and just going to be looking for jobs. So I think the Mets will be able to get some pretty quality players at very low cost, maybe even minor league contracts. And that would just give them this overall depth that would be so valuable and so crucial for a 162-game season, and could be the difference maker to take the Mets to the next level. Because sometimes when we miss the playoffs by a game or two, you're like, oh man, if we only had one more second baseman, we only had one more reliever, or one more left fielder, whatever it is, just as an example. And if you sign these quality guys to minor league contracts that you could call up for those few days after someone got hit in the hand with a pitch they can't play for a couple games, and you go to these different guys and they step up and your team is still okay, you're still able to win, boom, all of a sudden you're in the playoffs. I mean, that's the goal for the Mets. They want to win a championship 3 to 5 years. It starts now. So Brad Hand, let's get him. You know what I mean? Mets are a favorite. They got the money. They like Brad Hand. Let's get it done. So hopefully they can sign him sometime soon, because Heyman said he does think that Brad Hand will sign pretty soon. So we'll see where he goes. Actually, literally as I pressed end recording, the New York Mets signed Jose Martinez to a 1-year deal with some incentives, only around $1 million. So that's what I was talking about, where, you know what, if you sign Brad Hand and then all of a sudden, let's say you get Jackie Bradley Jr., now you get those other guys, Jose Martinez, who knows? I mean, throughout his career, he's been a really good hitter with the Cardinals. He had a bad year in 2020, don't get me wrong. But for a guy incentive-based, if all of a sudden in spring training he shows you his bat is back, wow, what a bat off the bench you have. So those are the other moves I expect the Mets to make. Besides Brad Hand, besides maybe a center fielder or another starting pitcher, I expect to see a lot of this. Guys that, you know, high upside, low money, incentive-based minor league contracts that if they do well in spring training, they could have a big impact. If they don't, you let them go, because it's all incentive-based, so it's not costing you a ton of money. It's not preventing you from making any other moves. So this is a very solid signing for the Mets, because, you know what, it's low risk, potential high reward. If it doesn't work out, again, just get rid of them. So until the next one, be safe, be smart, be healthy, and let's go Mets.